divided that in three parts. Andorra at a glance, to give you a broad overview of the country. Then the taxation, which is the most important thing of here. And then also its uniqueness, because in Andorra, we don't like to be seen only as a tax country, low tax country, but also we have other uniqueness. Let me tell you that the pictures you will be seeing are real pictures of a country. So we have a lot of, now you can see that we have a lot of Romanic history and a little bit of nature. Andorra is between France and Spain, not so far away from Barcelona or Valencia or Madrid in Spain, not so far away from Toulouse, Monte Carlo. We are a microstate, that's a reality, but we are the biggest amongst all the microstates. Microstate would be the Faroe Island, we have also there Madagascar, we have Brunei. Well, of all those countries that are also in a union of microstates, Andorra is the biggest. Why it's the biggest? Because of population and of geographical surface. So far, you can see on this presentation that the population was around 80,000 people and 50% of foreigners. Well, when we did that presentation 1 month ago, the statistics of the country were the ones of 2021. Well, in 2022, the statistics have just appeared, and we can say that right now in Andorra we are 45,000 people. In 1 year, more than 6% of increase of population, which for a microstate, it's a lot. Later on, you will be able to know why we have such a rate of increase that is big. The geographical surface is almost 500 square kilometers, mainly nature, lakes. We have the euro, but we do not belong to the European Union, but we have the euro. You have also coins of euro that are made in Andorra, and that's since 4 years ago. Before, the euros that we were having were the French euro and the Spanish euro. Nowadays, we have Andorra euro coins. We fluently normally speak 4 languages, Portuguese, French, Spanish, because of our neighbors. And Catalan, it's the official language of Andorra. It's an official language as well at the United Nations Organization. So if you go to the United Nations Organization and ask for an agent to talk to Catalan, they will provide an agent talking to you in Catalan. But that's not because of Catalunya, Barcelona, it's because of the state of Andorra that United Nations speaks Catalan. We have a very good life expectation. We are ranked the 3rd worldwide because, again, of the nature, and there is not a lot of stress here. We are really calm. The average wage is 2,100 euros, more or less, and the minimum wage is between 1,100 and 1,300. I'm saying that scale because it will depend also on the area that you will be working. But it's a minimum wage. Our income per capita is ranked the 25th worldwide, so not so far, not so bad. And we do not have unemployment. I mean, the tax of employment is less than 3%. That means that it's a country that is all the time needing employees and working. And something that I really like from that state is that we are very, very safe for the citizens. We are the 3rd ranked worldwide, most safety country. Andorra is a parliamentary democracy. What that means? That we have a principality, but with 2 princes. They are co-princes. Every prince has to sign the laws. And if they do not agree, then the law, even if it came from the parliament, it will not be on place. The parliament has 28 seats, and it represents the 7 parishes of the state. The justice here in Andorra is an independent body. So even if we have parliament, we have princes, the justice is an independent body. That's what you have, a parliamentary democracy. But if someone doesn't believe on the Andorra justice, We have a supranational surveillance. That means that if at the end you have been arguing for something at the Andorra justice, if your lawyer has done things properly, then we can ask to the Council of Europe, for instance, and claim your right. We can ask to the Court of Strasbourg for the Human Rights, to the Organization of Security and Cooperation of Europe. We can also ask if something is happening at Iberoamerica. We ask to the Assemblée Parlementaire Francophone, and then of course at the United Nations Organization. So if you don't really believe on Andorran justice, at the end you have a supranational surveillance. I'm talking about telecommunications, which is something important in that country because we have a monopoly. The government owns the telecom company, and that telecom company belongs to the International Telecom Union. That means that we have a state-of-the-art technology. If you go at the top of any hill, 2,500 meters of altitude, you will have optical fiber, and nowadays we are implementing 5G. And that's something that is attracting people that are working with internet, because they can buy a house in the middle of the mountain and be sure that they will have the state-of-the-art technology to put their videos online and do the streaming. The immigration is another thing that is very particular of Andorra. As I told you before, we do not belong to the European Union, but we follow some of the rules. The rule that we follow, for instance, is that we do not belong to Schengen, but we follow the Schengen rules. And that means that any person has the right to be 90 days in Andorra as a tourist. They can be doing things during those 90 days, and even though they are not residents in Andorra, or even though they are not working as a resident in Andorra. We have a quota for foreign employees. That's something that in the UK, now you also know, that's something that in the United States we have always known. Foreign employees have to follow some rules in immigration, and at the end you will get your green card, like in the United States, that will let you be an employee in Andorra. And regarding financial, some years ago, very few years ago, Andorra entered into the International Monetary Fund and into the World Bank. That means that the 3 banks that we have in Andorra, you have the security later on with the International Monetary Fund and with the World Bank, in case that something happens with the Andorra banks in Andorra. So even if we have only 3 banks, they really follow nowadays the Moneyball, the Greco rules. And there are very severe and strict rules for money laundering, anti-money laundering. When someone wants to open a bank account in Andorra, it's not as easy as it used to be 10 years ago. Now the compliance is very severe, and they don't trust. So even if they are following the rules of Moneyball, they are even more strict. But if you are someone that wants to create the bank account here in Andorra as a resident, then something would be easier. As I mentioned before, we only have 3 banks, but any company regarding financial activities can be created in Andorra. So if you want to do something regarding currencies, regarding tradings, regarding portfolio management, we can open such a financial activity. The customs is something that it's been always done in Andorra between other countries of the European Union, even we do not belong to them, but we have some agreements with our borders, with the Spanish and the French borderline, and therefore goods can come, but not the agricultural goods. The other goods can easily cross the frontier, like when you go from Italy to Switzerland, more or less the same, or now from Europe to the UK. But thanks to the special agreements with the Spain and France, something are easier than with the Switzerland and with the UK. Now we have another nice picture of Andorra. That is the sundial lock. It's the Tostiana solar viewpoint. We have 25 meters of diameter, and it's an altitude of 2,500 meters of altitude. I like this place. Inflection points. 2012, Andorra has decided that any foreigner may invest in Andorra. So you don't have to be resident in Andorra to invest for something in Andorra. Even though things would be easier if you ask for a permission as a resident. But there can be some cases where you don't want to be resident here, but you want to invest because probably something on trading, as I told you before, or something on real estate and the construction, since we are having such an increase of population, and you don't want to be resident in Andorra, you can do that since 2012. Since 2015, in order to do not be part of the black and gray list of the international organizations, Andorra has started signing the double taxation agreements and the tax information exchange agreements. With that, it means that the countries that have signed with Andorra the double taxation or the tax information exchange agreement recognizes that Andorra has the same tax process and the same methodologies than the other country. And therefore, if someone tells you that, for instance, in Portugal, tells you that Andorra is still a gray country in the list, it means that this person doesn't really know what is happening with those international agreements. Once it has been signed, it really means that the state that has signed it recognizes that you are doing the same processes, and therefore it cannot be gray or blacklist. It is an equal on the processes and methods for taxation. There is another inflection point, and it's the one that in 2020 we got the pandemic of COVID. And that means that a lot of workers could have the release from their companies to work from home with internet, and that the location is not fixed anymore. Therefore, a lot of people decided to come to Andorra because of the telecommunications that I told you before, and to make their residence in Andorra, but keep on working for their normal company that is abroad. Why would they do that? I will tell you very easily in the next PowerPoint slides why a person would like to come to Andorra and work remotely from their other company. Those are the countries for the double tax information exchange, for the European Union agreements that we have with United States and Ibero-America and the European Union. You have some foreign earned income exclusion with the United States. Well, several things that I would like to tell you later on, and I will come back to that slide later on. As I told you before, something that is really important are the low taxes, very few and very soft. So for accountants, that's the paradise, guys. We only have to think about the VAT tax, the EBITDA, not the EBITDA, the tax on business and earnings, the tax on the income from people, the tax on capital gains, and then the tax of a specific company that is called variable capital company. We only have to think about those five. We do not have inheritance tax, it's zero. So any inheritant that is a resident in Andorra, he has the universal inheritance taxed in Andorra, and it's at 0%. We do not have the tax for the businesses when they are distributed the dividends. So any company that is distributing the dividends to their shareholders that have a residence in Andorra, they are not taxed. The company is not taxed. The resident then would be taxed as a people or as a business, the one that is receiving the dividend. So if you receive a dividend or whatever earning you are receiving as a business, you would pay the tax on the business earnings that is maximum at 10%. Why I'm saying maximum? Because we have 10%, 5%, and 1%. The ones that would be on 1% on the EBITDA would be the companies of variable capital. Then, if you are a people receiving earnings, dividends, earning as a job, earning as consultant, the maximum tax on people in Andorra is 10%, and it starts at 40,000 euros. Below 40,000 euros, you pay 5% of tax. And below 24,000 euros, you pay 0% tax. That's why I always say maximum 10. So let's suppose that someone is earning as a person 100,000 euros. In Andorra, it would be taxed between 40 and 100, 10%. So from those 60,000, the state takes you 6,000. And then between 40 and 24, the 8%, which means 800. So for a salary, an income as a person of 100,000 euros, the state takes only 6,800 euros. 6,800 euros only. And if I tell you maximum 10%, big numbers with your clients, that would be maximum 10,000, which is not the reality. At the end, I told you on that example that it would be 600 and 800 euros. The other tax that is really very competitive for Andorra is the one on capital gains. Capital gains on anything, bonds that you trading, real estates, from your purchase till the day that you sell it, you have this capital gain. If you are a resident in Andorra, that capital gain will be taxed maximum 2%. What I'm saying maximum, again, because we have some exceptions. For instance, if the capital gain comes from art or it comes from gold, then it would be taxed 0%. The other thing that I have also to underline from Andorra taxation activities is that any company that is registered or any real estate that is bought, we do not have public records of that. So if someone is a curious, like a journalist, and he wants to know if Mbappé has something in Andorra, since there is no public record of what he has bought as real estate or of what he has as companies, the journalist will not be able to know what Mbappé has in Andorra. But if the journalist knows the companies where Mbappé has created in Andorra, and he has access via the professionals who really have access to the system of the companies in Andorra, then we get the name of the company and we know who are the shareholders. Not vice versa. If we know the name of the shareholder, even if we have access to that professional system of the companies, we cannot know the name of the company. And anyhow, I keep on saying all the time that we do not have public record. Then, as I told you before, we can have a fiscal residence in Andorra or do not have it and be a foreigner who is investing in Andorra. I'm simplifying it with the 4 ways to get the residence in Andorra. But I would like to come back to that slide later on, because from that slide, I'm sure that you will have several questions, so I want to have that as our last slide. Let me come to others. We have a uniqueness in Andorra, And those uniqueness, as I told you before, we are not a tax haven. We have very low and simple taxes. We do not have the public record of the companies, not public record of the real estate. Our parliament is 28 seats, but one prime minister, two co-princes. The two co-princes have to sign the laws, and one co-prince is from the Vatican. He belongs to the Vatican. He's our archbishop. And the other one is the current president of the French Republic. We are compliant with a lot of international organizations for the regulations and the surveillance. It's easy to come to Andorra, very easy, very few kilometers from Barcelona, only 200 kilometers from Barcelona or from Toulouse, only 900 kilometers driving from Milan, only 600 kilometers from Monte Carlo, Monaco. If you want, you can come by car, you can come by public bus from Toulouse or from Barcelona or from Madrid. We have this airport shuttle that comes every 2 hours between Andorra, Barcelona, Toulouse, and we have one airport, and we have private helicopters. We do not have train access, which is very good for the immigration. That means that having only 2 exits, the one with the French border and the other with the Spanish border, the exit are very with a lot of information from the police and the immigration. And that's why also we have that rank of safety for citizens, because anyone who does something in Andorra, they will be caught easily from one of the 2 borders. We have 8 million tourists, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. Those tourists come mainly because we have a lot of sports and leisure activities all the time, in summer and in winter. Probably you have seen the ski World Cups of females that were at Soldeu, and we keep on doing that. The Ironman, we have several, at least 2 or 3 Ironmans in Andorra. We have the ones of the bicycles, the BTB World Cup, Le Tour de France, La Vuelta a España. More or less 90% of all the surface belongs to the nature, mountains. And nowadays, even though we have a lot of construction for all the new population that is coming as new residents, you still have a lot of surface. Let me show you the latest pictures. So the highest golf course in Europe, it's the highest altitude, La Vuelta de España and the Tour de France. The largest thermal spa of South Europe, the Cirque du Soleil with tickets for free and with a special show designed for Andorra every year. That's been since the last 8 or 10 years that we have that on summertime. And before ending, I want to go back with this one that I told you before. So you can invest in Andorra as a foreigner and then keep on paying your taxes in your country. And invest here because you want your business here as an Andorra company, and therefore pay the taxes of that Andorra company that were the 10% of the taxes, and therefore make your dividends with your people with no dividends with no taxes on the business for the dividends distribution. But if you want to be resident in Andorra and therefore have some of the other benefits, like the inheritance, like the personal income, like the capital gains on person, then you could apply for a residence in Andorra. That means a green card. Really, it's a green card. It's a card of green color. And they are simplifying everything to you 2 ways. One is a passive residence, where the individual is asked to stay 91 days in Andorra, 91 days in Andorra. With this passive residence, Andorra recognizes and gives you a certificate of tax that you are living in Andorra and therefore should pay your taxes as an Andorra citizen. And that is a way that was divided into, or you are retired. Retired doesn't mean that you are old. You could also be young and have money from your investments, no? But you are retired from an activity, from a professional activity. Therefore, you can come to Andorra, apply for the passive residence. The government asks you a bond of 50,000 euros. This bond on the Association of the Banks in Andorra. And when you decide to leave Andorra, then that bond with no interest will be returned to you. The government also asks to have an investment of 550,000 euros in real estate or in a bank account of Andorra or in government bonds from Andorra. It's an investment that you have to do. They ask you for a home address and for a private health insurance. There is another way that you can say, well, I want to be passive, stay 90 days in Andorra, and then be living in other countries, and I have a profession. I'm not retired, I have a profession. I'm, for instance, a professional from the MotoGP, or a professional from the cycling tours, or a scientist that I'm doing a lot of conferences worldwide, piano or artist, international artist. So I will stay in Andorra those minimum 90 days. My main income comes from abroad Andorra because I'm working abroad. And that would be the international active professional. The government asks you that 50,000 bond, but they also ask you for a business plan of your company that you are creating in Andorra. And this company must have at least 85% of the income made internationally. So maximum 15% in Andorra, but also could be 100% built outside of Andorra. That means that your company is in Andorra, so you pay those taxes of business tax. That means that you as a person are receiving this salary in Andorra, and you pay maximum that 10% again, or could even be 5% or zero. So just remember the example I gave you before. If someone earns as a person 100,000 euros, you would pay maximum 6,800 euros as taxes per person. And that gives you that benefit, this passive residence. The other way, the active resident, means that you are staying minimum 183 days in Andorra. You are really active for Andorra. They also give you this certificate that you are taxpayer officially of Andorra, but you really have to demonstrate to the government that you are living here these 183 minimum days, or because you are employed from an Andorra company, and therefore you have an employment offer. You have the social security paid from the employee and yourself. It's something mixed, and it's not expensive for the company that has employees in Andorra. Compared to the other countries, it's not expensive. Or the other way is that you are a self-employed. In the south of Europe, we say autónomo. So this self-employed creates a company in Andorra, his own company. They ask you for this bond of 50,000 euros to the government. They ask you for the home address for the business creation. At least you have to be administrator of that own company with at least 21% of the shares. So you could have a shareholder, but that shareholder has to be maximum 21%. The other 79 is yours, must be yours. You need a commercial address, a legal address, and you also have to pay your Andorran Social Security by your own, which starts at 500 per month, this Andorra Social Security. But the Andorra Social Security has an agreement with Spain and with France, which belong also to the European Union. So once you decide to retire from your company or as an employee in Andorra, and you decide to get also your retirement funds from the other countries you've been working, or you decide to go back to Spain, Portugal, or France, which are the three countries that are working with Andorra on the social security, then everything would be added and you would have the one from Spain, the one from Portugal, the one from France, and the one from Andorra. And the other thing that is specific of the Andorran Social Security is that we only have one hospital here so far. It's a public hospital that was created when population was around 50,000. So now it's more than, the population is more than double, but the hospital is still one. And that's why the Andorran Social Security made the agreements with France hospitals and with Spanish hospitals that in case of emergencies, from Andorra you will be transported to Spain, mainly for cancer reasons, and from Andorra you would be transported to France, mainly for cardiac reasons. And the last thing that I want to mention to you before going to the questions is that any foreigner may invest in Andorra without applying for the fiscal resident, as I told you before. Any foreigner may apply for this fiscal residence in Andorra to get their green card. And once you are resident in Andorra for more than 20 years, you can be qualified to get your passport from Andorra. What benefits you have as an Andorran with a passport compared to other passports that we have in European Union? Really not a lot of benefits. But having a passport from Andorra, in case that you have a problem abroad, legal problem, big legal problem, then the first court that should apply for you should be the one in Andorra. And let me tell you that the jails in Andorra are one of the most luxurious jails in the world. Nothing to do with Indonesia, Italia, Spain. They are really luxurious. So in the worst scenario, that passport is good for that. But since I believe that you are not one of those cases, let's forget about the Andorra passport to be qualified. It's only an anecdote. The really last thing that I want to mention to you is that Andorra has no sea. We are in the middle of the mountains. And amongst the agreements that we have done between France and with Spain, one of the agreements is the free circulation of the citizen that is a resident of Andorra between those countries to get into Andorra. So when we got the lockdown of the COVID and people couldn't, from an Italian couldn't leave Italy or a Spanish could not leave Spain because you were completely locked, having the residents of Andorra let you move easily from the other countries of the European Union and drive or come by a helicopter to Andorra and then have this freedom of movement. The hospital that you could apply for if you needed something was in Spain or France. So again, you could move by having this fiscal residence, this green card. Otherwise, you were completely locked in your country. So thanks to being in Andorra, I have been able to move a little bit when we had this lockdown, just because of this green card, in addition to the other things that I told you before.